Welcome to the City Council informational meeting. The meeting will begin in 1 minute. We have fiscal after, yes, we do. We have one item on the fiscal. Yeah, anytime you're ready to go, we're ready to go. There you go.
Ready? Yep. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the City Council informational meeting of Tuesday, September 23rd, 2013. I'd like to thank you, everybody, for attending the meeting and those in the audience. I hope everybody had a great holiday weekend. It was fantastic for me anyway. So from a City Council open discussion, are there any items for Council open discussion at this time? I will bring up one thing, and then I'll pose the question once again. And that is that, as you all know, we've been really working hard on the budget. Staff has asked that if you have any proposed amendments or need help with any amendments to the proposed budget, that you see staff by next Tuesday, September 10th, to give them time to make the arrangements. Also, I would appreciate it. It's been asked that if you want to share what your amendment is going to be with the other councilors, they would like to know that. And if you don't want to share, that's okay too. If you want to wait and hold your the nature of the amendment until the second reading usually is when we introduce the amendments, that would be fine also. But we just ask that if you need some help, they need the time to be able to do the footwork for you. So I would appreciate that. Is there any other open discussion items at this time? There being none, we will move forward with presentations. And Rich, this is the audit of the ambulance service agreement.
Good afternoon, City Council. We have the ambulance service agreement to discuss today. First of all, I want to thank Rural Metro Management, the REMSA staff, and Health Department management for their courtesy and cooperation during this audit. There's quite a bit of background information in this report on page 3 and 4, and you should have a hard copy in front of you there. I won't go into a lot of that in this presentation, but there's information about emergency medical service in the United States in general and Sioux Falls and specifically. And also at the very end of the report, the last couple pages, there's a glossary of terms. Some may be unfamiliar to you. For example, the difference between paramedics and EMTs and what BLS means and what ALS means and the terms that are used when talking about emergency medical services. Rural Metro has had exclusive rights in the City of Sioux Falls to provide emergency medical services within our city limits. And this current agreement expires in middle of 2015. The Sioux Falls Regional Emergency Medical Services Authority, which we'll call REMSA from now on, provides the oversight over the service provider. And this particular audit focused upon the compliance of Rural Metro and REMSA with the current agreement. And our other two audit objectives were to determine if the risks associated with ambulance service agreements are adequately mitigated and to develop ideas for management's consideration when the city develops a new agreement. So with the results, beginning on page 5 of the report, we concluded, based on our audit work, that REMSA and Rural Metro were in compliance with the terms of this current agreement. Specific things we looked at were the ambulance response time. That was the primary performance measure that Rural Metro has to meet. We looked at oversight by REMSA, whether inspections are happening, whether there is medical oversight. We looked at the required insurance coverage, if that is in place. We looked at the accreditation with CAS, CAAS, if that was achieved and it's being maintained. And we looked at the user fees that are approved by REMSA and if patients are being charged the approved fees. And we found that for those specific things that they were in compliance. We have quite a bit of detailed information on ambulance response time in the report beginning on page 5. There are basically 4 codes when a call comes into the Metro Communications. On page 4, they describe code 1, 2, 3, and 4 and what that means. And for code 1, the response time is to be 19 minutes and 59 seconds or less, and we found that they were complying with that, meeting that standard. And for codes 2, 3, and 4, the response time had to be 8 minutes and 59 seconds or less, 90% of the time. And that's sort of a standard performance measure across the country based on medical research from the 1970s. And as I said, that's the primary performance measure that they have to meet. Now, they obviously the public would prefer that the ambulance provider would be there 100% of the time within that standard. That's not practical. It would likely require a taxpayer subsidy. You'd have to have a lot more ambulances, a lot more locations in town to meet the 100% of that standard. Now, they do request exemptions from the performance standard, and REMSA can grant those exemptions. We found that about 60% of the time when it's requested, that's on a monthly basis, REMSA will give them an exemption so that call is not figured into the performance standard. And under the agreement, on the middle of page 6, there's about 5 reasons that they can grant an exemption. One was inclement weather. The other one, multiple calls in the same area within a short time period. Road construction would be another example. Extraordinary circumstances and other good causes. So we felt that the contract language, in our opinion, it was very open-ended. And we asked REMSA staff if rural Metro had ever been assessed a monetary penalty, and they have never been assessed a monetary penalty. But we did have some ideas for that for future agreements. And we also looked at, as an audit objective, was the risk common to ambulance service agreements and to see if they're being adequately mitigated. Just 2 examples among many. We found that mutual aid agreements are in place in case of a multi-casualty incident, and that the service provider, rural Metro, holds the city harmless for all liability for damages to persons or properties, and that's just 2 examples of some things we looked at as far as risk and mitigating controls. And as far as the ideas for a future agreement, management had requested that we suggest some things for the next agreement. And starting on page 7 of the report, continuing through page 8, we have a number of bullet points there. Just like to look at about 3 of those. We suggested maybe simplifying the contract administration by adjusting that response time standard by eliminating the exemptions and the threat of monetary penalties, and just have a flat percentage that they have to meet the response time every month and not have to go through that exemption process or the threat of monetary penalties. We would suggest having a performance measure of patient outcomes in a few critical areas such as cardiac arrest and trauma. What does the public care about? Obviously, they want the ambulance to show up quickly, but we're also interested in patient outcomes, and you could have an ambulance meeting the performance outcome of getting there on time, and the patient could still die, and we want some other performance measures but other than just having the ambulance show up quickly. So we thought that might be something we could look at for a performance measure for the next contract. We suggested considering a standard for age or mileage of the ambulance. For example, you could write into the agreement age of the ambulance would be 8 years or less, and no more than 100,000 miles on the vehicle. Just one of many ideas that we had, and that was based upon our research and talking to REMSA staff, talking to the fire chief, and just some ideas that for consideration when we negotiate a new agreement for ambulance service. And on page 8 of the report, we kind of concluded this statement here. Based upon our research for this audit, we believe that no change needs to be made in the emergency medical services system design in Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls has a system that is considered a high-performance model. There is no taxpayer subsidy of the private ambulance company, and the public relieves ambulance service with good patient outcomes, particularly in the area of cardiac arrest survival rate. And you've had a presentation on that, I think earlier this year from our health director on cardiac arrest outcomes in Sioux Falls. And we did have 2 recommendations beginning on page 8 of the report. The city has not gone through an RFP process to award the ambulance franchise. We think when you're talking about a public monopoly, basically what this is, that the public should have an idea of what's going on. You shouldn't just award a public monopoly. Every so often to go through that RFP process and invite other competitors to submit bids. We think that's a good thing for transparency. It opens up prices to competition, and it just adds transparency to the whole endeavor. And number 2, if the city decides to go through that process, we would strongly suggest hiring a qualified EMS consultant to help with that RFP process. There's risk involved with going through an RFP. If you do a bad one, you can get a bad contract. If we got an ESM consultant who had helped other local governments go through the process, we think that would be helpful. Some of the ideas are that are the requirements that we're suggesting, are they likely to discourage potential bidders? In other words, are the requirements unrealistic? Would there be better requirements in a future contract than what we've come up with? Another thing, will the review committee, if we decide to go that route, how would they score the proposals? Would it be individually? Would it be as a group? So we might need some consultation on that, exactly how you would score proposals. Another risk is that the city could receive what's called a cavalier proposal. That would be a proposal where the provider may not fully understand the requirements that we're asking for. But you could mitigate that risk by having pre-bid conferences to discuss the requirements, and they could make suggestions. You could also do a request for credentials or qualifications before you would accept a provider turning in a RFP. So we just think the assistance of a consultant would be valuable if the city decides to go through that RFP process. We did have a written response from management, specifically from Jill Franken, the city health director, and that is beginning on page 9 and continuing through page 10 of your report. You can see the written response from management. And at this time, I'm happy to entertain any questions that you may have. And I think Jill Franken is here from the health department. She is the city's liaison for this contract, and also the rural metro manager here in Sioux Falls is available as well. So,
good. Thanks, Rich. Are there any questions for Rich? Councilor Staggers, please.
What is a high-performance model?
That is a model where it doesn't cost the taxpayer any money, but you're getting a really good outcome. And I found from 2 different sources that and one was a very independent source. One source was from I think it was the American Ambulance Association. They consider this high performance model, but of course you could say they have a vested interest in that. But the other source I did have was an independent source, and they had done the independent research on that. And the 2 models that are out there are having the city or local government provide the service, usually through the fire department typically. But that, of course, requires taxpayer subsidy. And the other model which we use is awarding a franchise or a monopoly, if you will, to a provider, and allowing them to provide the service, and typically they're financed just strictly through user fees, not costing the taxpayer any money. So I think with those 2 factors, no subsidy and getting a good outcome, it's a high-performance model.
There is one area where we do pay money, and that's with REMSA.
Yes, and we have information about that in that is true.
How much are we paying REMSA right now?
Well, we have 2 staff members of REMSA, the executive director and the medical director. They are city employees, and that costs approximately $200,000 for the city. We have to pay their salary and their benefits, and then we of course we fund Metro Communications, the dispatch service. We pay 75%, and county pays 25%. And I think that was approximately $850,000. We have a dispatch service, and then. Metro Communication in turns gives us back $29,000 for our medical oversight. So yes, and the reason we have the I think that was a result of an IRS audit a number of years ago that we had to make the REMSA staff city employees. They weren't considered independent contractors, so we were put them on the payroll. So
One more, please,
Yeah,
Councilor Steggers.
and also, I guess there's been a concern among some of us when it comes to REMSA overseeing the equipment of rural metro, that, you know, we should be having maybe better equipment. Can you say something about if you found anything like that?
They're required to inspect at least once a year, and we found that they were inspecting basically twice a year any given ambulance. Primarily inspection is, do they have the right supplies and equipment? There's a very detailed list of what kind of medical supplies and equipment that have to be in each ambulance and in what quantities. And that is checked, and that takes a while to do that inspection. That's primarily what they do. They do look at, obviously, the appearance and the cleanliness of the ambulance. Now, the other time they get inspected by an independent person is when they go through the accreditation process, which they're going through, I believe, right now. I don't know if they finished that yet, but when I was doing the audit, they were getting ready for the accreditation, which is every 3 years. An independent group comes in and does a field visit, and they do look at the equipment. They do look at the maintenance records to see if they're up to accreditation standards. So REMSA is doing it about twice a year, and then every 3 years, the accreditation folks come in and do an inspection of maintenance records and equipment and so on. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on. Councilor Erpenbach, please.
Thank you. Could I ask Jill, since you're in the audience, could you answer a couple questions, please? Thank you, Rich. While you're walking up here, I'm just looking at your responses to the audit, and I like this idea of the potential for an RFP for the next go round, and I wanted you to talk to us about, just kind of explain a little more in detail what that accreditation is that you would want the applicants to be accredited already. I mean, obviously they're going through it right now or they've just finished it, but can you talk about that from your perspective?
Sure. Again, Jill Franken, Health Director for the city. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. When we look at the accreditation right now, our ambulance service, Rural Metro, is accredited. And when we specifically talked about that, I think what Rich had indicated in his remarks in the audit was that the accreditation would be accomplished within 2 years. Mm-hmm. Or 24 months, something mm-hmm. of that order. I believe that we enjoy an ambulance service that is currently and fully accredited. I think that it would be in our best interest to make that a requirement in the RFP process that they are currently accredited, not obtaining the accreditation within a 2-year time frame. So they could not come in then as an unaccredited entity to provide ambulance service. They would have to hold that accreditation and be active with that. Does that answer your question?
No, and it makes perfect sense to me. One more, Mr. Chair. Then your other response regarded the committee of folks that might be involved with looking at those applications in the RFP process. You know, talk a little bit more about you lean away from sort of community volunteers and more toward more REMSA folks who talk about, is that a conflict, or talk about how you feel about REMSA and how that might be a better fit for that committee?
Well, REMSA is actually a community board, a community they are representative of the community. They're a citizen board, just like many of our boards and commissions, and it would be my feeling that they well represent the community and hold that ability to be a bulk of that group that would do that review and make those recommendations then as to who would hold that franchise agreement. It's merely taking what we already have in terms of a citizen board and then adding the additional complements of individuals that could help strengthen that and give that the kind of, composition that it's still within keeping of what Rich was talking about, but it would be utilizing the REMSA citizen board as the folks that would represent the community.
Well, and it adds city council staff, or a city council member and some city staff as well. And so I guess I see that as probably a good mix too. I guess I appreciate you coming and answering questions without being forewarned, but
That's okay.
I guess I like those recommendations. I like what the audit says, and I like the RFP idea, so I would just kind of throw that out there as something I hope we're headed for that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jamison, please.
Well, thank you. Jill, if you could stay close.
Sure.
Did you get an estimate from Rich on the cost of the services and help that you needed to do the hire a consultant to help you through that?
Not yet, but I would imagine, maybe I need to let him answer that. Thank you.
You know, my guess would maybe, and this might be light, but maybe 25,000. It'd be a very limited scope. When we hired Fitch and Associates in the past, I think we spent anywhere from 50,000 or greater. And that was for an EMS design study, which is much more work. What we would be asking for is just help with the RFP process, coming up with a good RFP, and so it's really just a guess. But we have used consultants, I know, for the EMS design study, and but obviously, if we go that route, we're going to have to supplement the health department budget. It's not in there now for 2014, as far as I know, right? Yeah. So.
To piggyback off that, I think that 25,000, we would have to just then do what we could do with 25,000 if that were the case. I'm not sure, not to disagree with Rich by any means, but I think that if we're going to really do an RFP in the way, it could cost more than that. And so I think we'd have to just be very clear about the scope, as he said, as to what we're looking for and as far as assistance. We believe that we have great in-house capacity to do this quite well. And so if we needed someone to read through, maybe we draft the RFP and then have, a consultant really just give us their blessing. Maybe they don't even have to come here to do the work that needs to be done. But giving their expert overview of it might be what we get, from that amount of money with a little bit extra. So
I like that idea as well. So the question really is the new contract or the current contract is up in 15?
correct.
And
Mid-year.
so are you, do you need the budget amended so that you can have the 25, or should we just amend it later? Would you rather see it in there right now?
I think that it could perhaps go,
Well, maybe
we could supplement
Okay, I
at
don't
a
want to put you on the
later
spot
date.
too much. I mean, I guess that's one of the biggest outcomes of this audit was that we needed to figure out a way to fund it. And to do this RFP, if we're going to renew and do this again and do it right, the director needs help of getting this done. So certainly we can't take that action here, but it would be up to this body to fix it. And I think that's something we should at least agree on, that it needs to be included, and 25,000 I think is the number. And if everybody else agrees or nods, maybe we could work that out. But if we don't, maybe we can find another way to do it too. I'd sure be open for another way too.
The question I would ask, Director, this contract though runs through mid-2015?
Correct.
So the RFP would be budgeted in for the 2015 budget, if I'm not mistaken. Is that not correct?
We believe
How much
it would
time do you
take-
need? 2014, Rich?
We believe it would need to be an expense in 2014. We'll be in the process of actually working through the particulars of the contract early in 2015. So yeah, it would be 2014, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Karski, please.
Thank you to all our good council members. I had about 99% of my questions answered right now, and including the last one, was the contract in December of 2015 or January of 2015. I attended the National League of Cities convention last year in Austin, and I noticed there that there is a lot of competition in ambulance providers, and there are a lot of them that are accredited, and if we haven't done this in some time, I think it is time to do that, and I would support looking at an amendment to the budget somehow to make sure that we could get this done, just as stewards, good stewards of our city government. So thank you for what you did today. Appreciate it.
Councilor Anderson.
I also want to agree with Councilman Karski on that. It's been since 92 or 93 since we actually did anything as far as ambulance service, RFP, taking a look, or allowing any type of bid to be happening. To me, that's long enough. I do have a question on the exemptions. Rich, do you know, like, how many exemptions are given a month? And do you have any records of those, why they were given, what the excuse was?
Yeah, the most common reason, I believe, was multiple units in one area. They didn't have enough units to respond. Occasionally it's the weather or road construction, but they weren't as common. It's usually you have more units out there than you can respond immediately. And about the ones the months that I looked at, the paperwork and documentation I looked at, I think about 60% of the requests were approved. The manager of rural metro gets the report every month. He goes through that, and then he circles or marks the ones that he wants exempted and the reason, and then presents that to the executive director of REMSA. And so, yeah, I think as far as the actual, like, a typical number of exemptions, I have that in here, but I have to.
If maybe you could send that to us later on.
I could probably send that to you,
That
yeah,
would be
because
fine.
I think I looked at 4 different months in the 2-year span. I can send you the actual numbers, but I remember it was about 60%. The ones I looked at got approved, and the most common reason was multiple calls.
Were you allowed to look at their internal files also for rural metro?
Well, I saw those exception reports that they generate every month, but and I looked at the billing. Obviously, I looked at a statistical sample of bills that they charged customers, and I saw that. I looked at the rates that REMSA approves. They're allowed to approve annual rate increases up to 4%, or the CPI for medical care. The original rates are established by the City Council many, many years ago, and then after that, REMSA can approve the yearly increase up to a certain limit. If it goes over the limit, then it would come to you. So I looked at a statistical sample. They provided the bills for me to look at, and then I checked to see that they were charging what was allowed by REMSA. So.
Please.
Yeah.
So then REMSA has a little more authority than most of our citizen committees.
Yes.
Our citizen committees are basically advisory,
Yeah.
where REMSA is directly hands-on.
Yeah, I would say they have more power, but of course the members are appointed by the City Council, as I think you're all aware, and they have a restraint on how much they can approve. Now I know this came up probably about 5 years ago when I was doing the research. The City Council had some concerns about allowing REMSA to approve rate increases, but ultimately they did approve that. I think maybe 2008 or so.
Well,
But it was a discussion point, I think.
But it's even more than rate increases that they're allowed to dictate. And it's not only just to the ambulance service, but it's also to our fire department on what equipment they can use and services.
Well,
that
they
can
certainly
give,
have medical
correct?
oversight. The medical director approves, and the medical board, they approve all the medical protocols, and they review in some detail the paramedic performance. So yes, I would say Dr. Luther has a lot of authority in the medical board to decide what procedures are protocol and how they perform.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I can ask one more question.
One question,
sir.
please.
This will be for Joe Franken, please. Jill, a couple years ago, the mayor and I attended a REMSA meeting, and that was held in the meeting room of Rural Metro. And this was before the health department took over. Where are those meetings being held now?
In the health department?
No.
Conference room?
That's what I wanted to hear.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much, Rich. Next on the agenda, we do have Councilor Staggers asked for an opportunity to make a presentation concerning the tornado damage down in Moore, Oklahoma. Councilor. I see we have you brought your own technical staff with you too, right, Kermit?
In fact, I have a couple IT, my grandson right here, and then, of course, we have Jim here too. So
Great, thank you.
we'll see if this is a flawless presentation. May 20th, 2013, we had, of course, a EF5 tornado take place in Moore, Oklahoma. 3 months after the tornado, my wife and I, June, and for those of you who don't know, here's June. And I decided to get down to Moore, Oklahoma. Now, the pictures you're going to be seeing of Moore, Oklahoma, 3 months after the tornado were taken by June. She's the expert on taking pictures. Let me also clarify at the same time that when we went down to Moore, Oklahoma, we paid all of our expenses. There was no money from the city involved in this at all. Now, where is Moore, Oklahoma? Well, this is probably not the best map, but you can see in the center of the map where it says Oklahoma City. So Moore, Oklahoma is located just south of the capital of Oklahoma. You can see it there in the pink. In fact, 3 sides of Moore, Oklahoma are Oklahoma City. And then the southern part is Norman, Oklahoma, where Oklahoma University is located at. Now, looking at this map, the tornado that eventually struck Moore on May 20th came from the west and set down in the southwestern part of Moore, and then eventually went across I-35 and then also set down in the southeastern part of Moore, Oklahoma. Moore, Oklahoma is a community of about 57,000 people. Now, we're going to have a short video of the actual tornado itself. We'll get some volume here too.
Oh my God. This is not good. Please, dear God, please keep these people safe. Lots of debris in the air.
This will last about 3 minutes.
On the side? Starting to... Big, there's a whole roof that just came off. No, not yet. Oh my gosh.
Look, it's already starting to cycle up over here.
Listen. Oh my God. Oh my, watch out guys, car's coming, car's coming.
Please keep these people safe.
Please, dear God. Listen! Very large and deadly tornado. Kevin, get the pictures, man. I'm getting the video.
All right, I got you.
I've never heard roar like that before. Oh my God, it's gonna go just to our north. Very large and dangerous tornado heading into Moore, Oklahoma. I know, hold on. It's going to our north. We're completely fine.
Get in the car.
Okay. Everyone else get in. I'll jump in when you guys are ready. Yeah, we need to go. We need to go. Hold on, Lauren. We have lots of debris coming down. Okay, we are completely fine right here. Stop.
You go north, back behind it.
Yeah, actually, yes, you're right.
We're gonna come back through the debris field, guys.
Yeah. The search and rescue time after this, guys.
Oh my God,
this is the damage path right now. Houses are completely leveled.
Leveled. It doesn't even, it's unrecognizable.
Leveled. Houses are leveled.
This doesn't even look like it was ever a development.
No, it doesn't.
It looks, oh my God.
Oh no, this.
Oh my God, guys.
This is.
Look at those people, we have to help them.
Alright, pull over in this little inlet right here. Pull over right here.
This looks like a daycare or a school or something. Look at all the kids.
Okay.
Total destruction. That's what this tornado did to much of Moore, Oklahoma. As I mentioned earlier, it was an EF5 tornado, the worst that you can get. This tornado had 210 mile per hour winds. Now, the result of this total destruction is that we have 25 people being killed and more, 372 injured, and approximately $2 billion worth of damage. Also, I should point out this tornado was one of the widest in American history. Here's some of the destruction 3 months after the tornado struck. What you're looking at is where houses used to be, and now, of course, there's nothing. In the middle of the picture, you might be able to see an American flag flying there, and of course, you see that lone tree there standing. Here's another picture of the destruction 3 months later. Another picture, you can see it's a very barren area. Once again, what we're looking at is a land that used to have houses on it. Now, you might be surprised. There's not a whole lot of debris there because what happened is that right after the tornado took place, the city of Moore, along with other government entities, began a cleanup of all the debris. And right here is a sign that's still out for people to read. Basically, it's talking about they have an office that's open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And what you do is you go to this office and you fill out a form, and then you'll have city contractors coming by to pick up your debris, concrete slabs, and footings. Now, none of the debris has been picked up. You can see here an example of a lot of debris still around. And right here, of course, is a house that's still just sitting there, and the debris still has to be picked up. One of the most interesting things about the housing in Moore is that most of them do not have any basements. So when the tornado struck, of course, many people were vulnerable. Also, here's a lot of debris from the Plaza Towers Elementary School, which was completely destroyed. And then here's a strip mall which suffered damage from the tornado. There were a lot of businesses affected. However, probably most of the damage done in Moore was actually done to neighborhood homes. Approximately 1,150 homes were destroyed. And here we can see some examples of this. In the foreground, houses used to be there. And then, of course, in the background, you can see houses that were damaged and probably will be torn down. Here's another example. Houses used to be in the foreground, completely gone now. And in the background, you can see some houses, and many of those houses in the background hardly suffered any damage at all. Here's another picture of damage. You can see now we have signs out front of this one house. And one of the signs is R&R Homes. It's a construction company that's there willing to reconstruct your home. Here's more pictures of damage in the neighborhood. If you take a look in the center of the picture, there's this house with blue plastic on the roof. And that's obviously an example of a family that's trying to save their home. You know, many homes suffered roof damage, and to prevent the rain and the elements from getting inside, they put the blue plastic over the roof. You're going to see many, though, that are damaged that do not have the blue plastic. They're giving up on their homes. Here's an example of damaged homes in the foreground. And then as you look in the picture and continue to look to the background, you can see that, oh, there's homes back there where there's no damage to the roof. And then also you can see some cars there. Those homes are very livable. However, these homes in the foreground, they're probably going to destroy. Oh, here's a very nice home that June and I saw. We were really disappointed to see this home damaged like this, coupled with the fact there is no blue plastic, indicating they've probably given up on this home. And so consequently, over 3 months, rain and the elements have gotten inside. Here's another home. You can see at the very top of the roof, it's gone. There's a large chunk of it gone. Apparently, they've given up on this home, and it will probably be destroyed in the near future. Another one, it's going to be destroyed very shortly. However, not everybody is giving up. You can see here somebody has put down their address and saying, hey, we're okay. Well, maybe not totally okay, because this is the back of the house. What does the front of the house look like? There's the front of the house. They have lots of blue plastic. So lots of damage, but they're trying to save their home. And we also have some people right now trying to fix up the damage to their home as a result of the tornado. But when you talk about Moore, Oklahoma, the real tragedy, the real damage was done to 2 elementary schools, Briarwood and Plaza Towers. Briarwood is at the top of the slide here. It was built in 1986. Plaza Towers is at the bottom of the slide, built in 1965. The next slide I'm going to show you is what Briarwood looks like now. That's it. It was completely destroyed by the tornado. All the debris from the school was taken away. We had this concrete slab remaining to symbolize what Briarwood was like. Also at Briarwood, they have a fence around the concrete slab, and you can see here's kind of a memorial. I don't know if you can read that or not, but it says hope. And here is a slide dealing with the Plaza Towers Elementary School. You can see the sign there, which is damaged, and you can see maybe on the top line it says Y20. Well, it was actually May 20, and of course that's the same day the tornado hit. We have the fence, and behind the fence is where the elementary school used to be at. Directly behind the sign, you can't really see very well, there's also a memorial. And you can see in this memorial we have a number of crosses. In fact, there are 7 crosses representing the 7 children that were killed in that elementary school. They have their names on the crosses, they have seats, and then also you can see people have brought teddy bears and things like that. Here's a close-up here of a couple of the crosses with names on them. And right here's a broader picture of the memorial. But one of the reasons I wanted to show you this picture too is to indicate that in the background where the school used to be, they're doing grading, and it appears like they're going to rebuild the school. Now around these schools, there are the fences, and there's also messages, signs on these fences. Here's one from Briarwood. Talking about Hope Station, loves Briarwood Elementary, and having a website and things like that. Here's another sign which says, a tornado took our home, but God used an ark to save the only thing that really matters, our family. And talking to Jim, we were trying to figure out what's this ark all about. And we've kind of concluded maybe it's their bathtub that they were in and were saved from being hurt. But anyway, they're thankful to God. Here's an interesting sign. This sign was inside the Walmart, which was near where the tornado set down. In fact, the Walmart was very lucky in not being damaged. But here's what this banner or sign says. This is inside the Walmart. Our thoughts and prayers are with you in Oklahoma. Walmart store 1523, Glen Allen, Virginia. So that seems to also symbolize a lot of America saying prayers for what happened to the people in Moore, millions and millions of Americans. But we also have businesses like Hobby Lobby and Nike also contributing lots of money to help those people out. What can we do? Well, let me mention that we can actually do a lot. It's just a matter of whether we have the will to do it or not. Let me explain this a little bit more, trying to add some kind of perspective what I just said. I think it's important to keep in mind, and this is something we usually don't think of, is that we have a very wealthy government. The City of Sioux Falls is very wealthy. All of us are aware that we have about $35 million in reserve for the general fund, but we also have millions in reserve from other funds. An indication we're a very wealthy community is we're building a $115 million event center. Also, we're thinking about spending $20 million for an indoor pool. We're going to be spending $35 million for a greenway. And each year we spend millions on parks. Coupled with that, we also spend millions for subsidies for the pavilion, the Orpheum Theater, the zoo, transit system, convention center, football fields, tennis courts, pickleball, and so forth and so forth and so forth. Usually we don't think of us, our community, as our city government as being wealthy, but we are very wealthy. Coupled with the fact that we will be receiving millions of dollars from FEMA in return for our payment for the ice storm cleanup. Not surprisingly, we have people who are very cynical of government sometimes. And we have people who feel that government sometimes might be greedy and selfish. However, now we do have a golden opportunity to dispel such a notion by helping the suffering people of Moore, Oklahoma. We can begin this by creating a city council task force to look into the possibility of helping the people of Moore, Oklahoma, and make recommendations for action. So at this time, I would like to conclude and to thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Are there any questions for Councilor Stegers? No questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
And thank you for your help, too. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Stegers. Is there anything else to come before the City Council at this time? Councilor Jamison?
Just to summarize, creating an amendment for Jill Franken's department to cover the research that she needs and the staff support, the RFP. I'll work on that if you guys don't mind, and I'll work with Jim and Dave maybe, but what we'll probably have to do is figure out where the money's going to come from and how much. And maybe 25 isn't the right number. Maybe it needs to be a little more. I think Jill was trying to do it as affordably as she could, but maybe just a little more research on what these things might cost will set us up, and then we'll communicate back and we'll figure out a price or an amount and where it'll come from. And so look for that if that's okay with everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anything else? There being nothing else at this time, I do want to call an executive session to consult with legal counsel about proposed or pending litigation or contractual matters pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2 subsection 3. Following the executive session, we will adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion, or we don't need a motion, do we? We do need a motion.
I would make a motion to do exactly what you just said, Mr. Chair, in regard to the proposed executive session and the codified law.
Thank you.
Second it.
There's been a motion by Councilor Erpenbach and second by Councilor Karski. Do we need to vote on that? Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Council members Stegers,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Entenmann,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Aguilar.
Yes.
We will move into executive session.